Evening, Story Hunters. It's nice to meet you all here again. You know, when it comes to finding your own place in the world, it's a little hard to find where you belong, pretty much in anywhere. But sometimes when you go out and find yourself, you find yourself in the most unexpected of places. For a moment you may not have known, as a story hunter myself, I didn't even know I was going to be an alpha of an entire pack. But I'm here now, and it's been a blessing, and I'm glad to show you all everything. But eventually, like myself and many others, we get lost sometimes. And sometimes when we're lost, we tend to find ourselves through other methods. And yeah, so while we're out here, we're just learning more about ourselves. And along with learning about part of being a story hunter, it's the story, that the prey of the story. We get to learn that as we go on. We develop our own stories when we learn who we are. That's what makes development great. That's what makes everything great. So, with that being said, hey, speaking of this conflict, speaking of lost being found, we found the most interesting places. It reminds me of the story that I once heard. Let me tell you all about it. It all started with a person getting lost in the woods. Quite like this.
Rustling leaves sway with the chilly wind, the tall pines towering over all, the scattered rays of the high sunlight passing over the dry leaves and twigs populating the forest floor, crunching loudly as they're crushed into the dirt. A lost girl lurches forth, a frigid air nipping at her skin through her tattered black cloak. "Please, someone! Anyone!" she weakly whispers to herself, her exhausted muscles reeling after every shaky step forwards, pulling her weary head up. Her eyes widen as she gazes upon a figure some couple of dozen yards away. A lone backpacker sits on a boulder, finishing up his lunch. Her desperate pleas have been answered. All she has to do is call out. Mustering up all she can with her cold, shredded lungs, a quiet, pained whisper escapes her mouth. "Help me!" she mouths, holding her hand shakily up towards the man as he walks away, unknowingly leaving the poor, lost girl. Her despair doesn't have time to manifest. She's pushed to her physical and mental limits, collapsing helplessly to the ground, joining the twigs and leaves against the dirt. Lost. So lost. Where are they? What happened? I'm cold. I'm hungry. I can't take this for much longer. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Gentle rain splashes against the fallen leaves, her eyes opening once more. Pushing her hands into the soaked earth, she turns around to see a scavenging coyote sniffing at her feet. Immediately, her dirtied face pulls up into a snarl. Spooked, the coyote sprints off into the mist-shrouded woods. Why did I do that? She wonders, sitting up and putting a hand over her torso. A strange feeling welled up in her. She couldn't help but growl. No matter, she mumbles to herself, picking herself up and pulling her cloak's hood over her head. No matter how bleak it may seem, she has to keep moving. Just keep moving. Her feet carry her up the hilly expanse. A rushing forest stream flowing downhill next to her as she walks on. It isn't long before the source of the stream passes into her view. A waterfall flowing in front of a small cliff stands before her, and better yet, a break in the rocky wall stands next to her. Tentatively entering the cave, she unceremoniously collapses against a cold stone wall, letting out many heavy breaths as her heart comes to a resting place. Dull and yellow light shines from outside, illuminating the granite as she lays her cloak down into a makeshift bed. This will have to do, she sighs to herself, wrapping her dirtied hand around her gleaming silver necklace as she lies down to rest. A pitter-patter of rain echoes through the cave, broken only by pain groans as the girl writhes restlessly on the ground. Intense aches pulse through her, her bones and muscles feeling like they're splitting themselves apart. Focus on the rain, focus on the rain, she tells herself, clapping her eyes shut. The drafty air whistles through the break into the rocks, passing over the agonized soul as she slowly forces herself to sleep. Wishing there was something, but there's nothing but the tree. Chirping birds and rustling leaves fill her ears as she wakes, searing pain in her gut, the only thing greeting her. Hungry, so hungry, she groans, shakily picking herself up. Soft sunlight beams down from the rising dawn, damp leaves squishing under her now bare feet. The feeling, a strange burning feeling, it returns to her. The light shines into her eyes so brightly. The ground beneath her feet feels so alive. The symphony of bird song in the air feels so deep and nuanced, and the sense of the air feels so strange and new. The searing pain in her abdomen is quickly replaced with a strange feeling as she lifts her nose up to the wind, closing her eyes and taking several deep whiffs. She can feel it. She can sense it. She doesn't know how, but she knows it. Her feet carry her quickly over root, rock, and dirt alike, leading her closer and closer to the enticing scent. Soon she looks forward, spotting a gray rabbit with its back turned to her. Without a second thought, she pounces forward, grabbing the creature as it futilely tries to sprint away. Her head burns, her heart races. Her mind thinks of only the meal to be had as she breaks the small creature's neck and plunges her teeth into its warm flesh. As the burning hunger clears and her mind returns to lucidity, what's left of the rabbit falls to the ground. She looks down to the remains, then up at her blood-stained hands. She falls to her knees, weeping. What's wrong with me? Why did I do that? She mumbles incoherently, shaking her head and breathing anxiously, pain blanketing every part of her being. Between her wails of pain and confusion, however, a white object catches her eye. The scattered tears are flung to the ground by the back of the girl's head as her creaking bones brings her up to her feet. Resting silently on the ground beneath the towering pines lies an ivory skull. Strange, she thinks to herself as she picks it up, examining it. The shape of the skull resembles a cervine, complete with large antlers, yet sharp fangs line the entire mouth, and the eye sockets face forward, characteristics of a predatory creature. Staring into those mysterious black eye sockets, her mind wanders. I can't stay here. I have to keep moving. Don't dwell on things. Dwelling on things will only make things worse. The woods won't have me. Not yet. I won't let fear overtake me. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Her nostrils flare. A horrid, unnatural smell passes into her nose. She reels, coughing, growling, grabbing at her nose. It's overwhelming. It's abhorrent. It doesn't belong. The strange skull crashes onto the ground, resting once more as she leaves to pursue the source of the abominable scent. Terrible scent. Burns. It's burns. She passes through the twilight forest, the sun low over the horizon as she reaches her destination. The clearing rests before her, a heavily used fire pit in the middle, and a shining synthetic fiber tent pitched next to it. A blinding light passes into her eyes as she scans the area, sending her fleeing under the brush. Staring from between the thick leaves, she watches a heavy gas-filled truck parks itself next to the tent. The lights turn off, and a solitary figure steps out of the truck. A hunting rifle is thrown across his back, his eyes squinting in the dim light, staring at the man before her. Her mind begins racing. She opens her mouth, panting heavily, and digging her fingers into the dirt. As strange, overwhelming feelings overwhelm her. She's scared. So scared. She can't let him get close. Stay away! Stay away! The tired eyes of the hunter bolt open, his startled hands shakily grabbing the rifle and pointing anxiously around the clearing. The sight of the rifle fills her with fear and despisal. She never liked guns. They're far too loud, not to mention cowardly. Evil man, hunter, loud gun. Her mind rambles to itself as she moves, ducks down, trying not to be seen, her eyes still locked on the frantic hunter. Something rustles the bushes. The boom of the rifle echoes through the forest, sending birds scattering away into the air. The hunter watches as a stray bird falls to the ground. He missed her. She lets out a blood-curdling scream as she jumps from her bushes, haphazardly slashing her nails across his chest. Dirt scatters as the rifle drops to the ground with a thud. The hunter is stumbling backward against the truck as he grasps his wounds. The girl stares down at her fingernails, now dripping with human blood. Trying to process what she's just done, horror and confusion fill her face. The only thing she could think to repeat herself. She didn't mean to hurt him. She was just scared. So scared. Stay away! Stay away! The man stands paralyzed, unable to move from fear and shock. He stares, looking straight into her, pulling open the truck door behind himself. The wounded hunter throws himself into the seat, not looking back as he drives away down the dirt road. The girl stares off into the distance, then back towards a vicious red liquid running down her fingers. She thinks back to the rabbit. Why did she do that? Why does she feel this way? She doesn't want to admit it, but the shining red staining her fingers looks so appetizing. She brings her hands up to her mouth, slowly bringing her tongue across the crimson-stained hand. Her eyes widen. She eagerly laps up the rest of it. The sun rises higher in the sky as the leaves and twigs crunch under the girl's bare gliding feet. Shimmering water stands before her in a still pond. Edging closer, she crouches down in front of it, cupping her hands and bringing the cool water up to her face. happened? She ponders, closing her eyes and letting the cold liquid refresh her. The water washes her hands, yet still, the tips of her fingers are stained pink. These new feelings overwhelm her. They're so frightening, yet natural. Thunder booms as the exhausted girl sits down at the edge of the familiar cave. She's always loved storms. Something about them calms her nerves like nothing else. Staring out into the glowing sheets of falling water, she can almost forget what's happening around her. Sitting there, trying to relax her mind, she eventually notices traveling air feels less piercingly cold than she did when she first rested here. Puzzled, she looks down at her arm, poking her head outside her cloak. A wave of confusion washes over her. How long has she been out here? Why is her arm so hairy? She shakes her head, looking back up into the pines towering overhead, swaying with the bellowing winds. Sitting there on the cold, hard stone, there's only one thing she can think of. How? She enjoys only a few precious moments of calm, then it hits her. Searing, biting pain shooting through her nerves, an involuntary scream of agony escaping her throat. She doubles over, her legs and feet aching as if they were about to snap in half. Soon, her face joins her legs in a symphony of agony, her skin feeling like it's lit on fire. She falls completely to the ground, her vision blurring as the pain overwhelms her. The last of her whimpers are drowned out by the rain as her consciousness finally fades. God, I really need to wash my bed covers. Hey, as long as it's so soft, it doesn't matter, right? You're so lazy sometimes. How long are you going to lay there anyways? Did you want to show me something? Oh yeah, you know all the sketches I made of those strange rooms I have hanging up over there? Yes? What about them? They found them carved into trees and forests near Lake Superior. I'd love to go and see that place myself. That's more than a little creepy, don't you think? What, are you scared of some trees? It'd be great! Her eyes open to meet the brilliant rays of the afternoon sun shining onto the rocky cliffside. She holds her arm up, blocking the blinding radiance as she sits up, grasping her growling stomach. Her eyes can't seem to focus. Her ears ring. Is she still in the cave? What's going on? She squints, giving her glimpses of clarity, but the oppressive light just keeps shimmering. Have to stand up. Keep moving. She reminds herself, mustering all the resolve she can as she pulls her feet below herself, pushing down against the stone. A jolt of shock bolts through her mind. Something's wrong. Something's very wrong. Her heels, they won't touch the ground. Before she can process what's happening, she falls forward, catching herself with her hands on the warm stone in front of her. Now staring at the dark stone, her vision finally clears, only for a jolt of shock to enter her brain once more. Her arms are covered in large swaths of fur. Her still pink stained fingers are tipped with black, sharp nails stretching out. She falls back against the side of the cave wall, perplexed and frustrated. Where am I?
What's happening to me?
She cries out to the ambivalent trees. Please, I just want to go home. She takes a deep breath. She can't lose herself yet. So hungry. Pressing her clawed hands against a rock, she slowly and shakily balances herself on her malformed feet. Gradually, her balance adjusts, and her gaze is finally freed from the stone. The gleaming greenery stretches out before her, the trees feeling ever so slightly less towering than before. Looking up to the top of the cave entrance, her suspicions are confirmed. She's taller With careful concentration, she takes a step forward, then another, then another. Her still aching muscles and bones supporting the unfamiliar new stance. Step by step, she teaches herself to walk again, moving past the gnarled roots, rolling hills, and thick foliage as best as she can. Hearing the singing of songbirds, she can almost feel serene, finding herself singing as well. Beautiful tunes permeate the forest as she keeps her light-sensitive eyes to the ground. Her grumbling stomach still eating away at her psyche and insides alike. The aimless wandering comes to a close, however, when a peculiar plant catches her eye. A blackberry bush. Immediately, she kneels down, thrusting her fingers towards the dangling blackberries, picking a handful. Ravenous, she drops one into her mouth, eagerly crushing it between her teeth. A horrible sensation fills her mouth. She spits it out, gagging. Rotten! It's rotten! That must be it! She looks back down at the berries, but they look perfectly healthy. Blackberries were never her favorite, but nothing has ever tasted this wrong. She feels sick. She can't eat this. Her hands grip around the remaining blackberries, crushing them in sheer frustration. As the hunger nags at the back of her mind, her thoughts can't help but wander back to the incident with the hunter. The dripping crimson liquid, the mere taste of it filled her with euphoria. The ravenous yearning. She can't dwell on it much longer. Her daydreams are abruptly broken as something catches her nose. That smell. That awful smell. Truck. Where there's a truck, there's a hunter. Part of her knows the danger in moving towards men with guns, but the putrid, unnatural smell fills her with disdain. She'd be lying if she told herself she wasn't thinking about her previous encounter as well. She felt something strange and wonderful back then. She needs more of it. Her nasal cavities scream as she surreptitiously moves forward, sticking not to the road, but to the thick foliage next to it. As the sight of the red, shining metal enters her gaze, she feels herself dropping down onto all fours, with her unfamiliar legs stretching out behind her and her arms to the ground. She inches forward, approaching slowly and carefully. She doesn't know why she's moving like this. It just feels natural, like a wolf stalking its prey. Staring forward through the earthy green underbrush, two figures become clear. Hunters, dressed similarly to the one before. They stand just outside their vehicle, looking over a map and pointing off to some unknown location. She can hear their gruff voices. "Sun won't be too much longer now. We need to get onto the campsite." The other man stares off down the road, his rifle against his shoulder. "That monster is gonna get its racketed. Can't cut up one of my crew like that and get away with it." She freezes. "Monster? What are they talking about?" She wonders to herself. The realization hits her like a truck. They're talking about her. The shock and confusion she feels turns resolute focus as she stares back at the man. "Damn straight! He barely was able to drive down the road up and out of here. Got a couple of dozen stitches now, last I heard." She perks up. What was he talking about? Down the road? Out of the forest? She turns, looking down where the truck came from. The two hunters step back into the crimson-painted vehicle, disappearing down the curved dirt path, frozen in her inconspicuous position for a few more moments. She slowly rises to her full height once more, stepping out onto the tire track-covered road. Her gaze stretches as far as it can go, the trees standing tall above all. She could follow the road, escape. She could go home. Just look at these trees. They're so tall, imposing. It's like they stretch on forever. Get your head back in the car, you goofball. We'll be seeing plenty of trees once we get to the park. Yeah, I suppose you're right. I'm just excited to finally see a forest like this in person, I suppose. The last breath of light escapes the forest, shadows encompassing all. The pain in her abdomen is becoming unbearable. She can't leave. No, she's far too hungry. She raises her nose to the cool night air, taking in a traveling whiff of campfire smoke. Why would she leave when there's food right around the corner? Standing tall, she moves swiftly through the darkened flora, twinkling stars gleaming overhead. Her eyes scan around. She looks to the sky, her eyes widening in surprise. She didn't notice the sun setting. It's night, and she didn't even realize it. What would once have been milky black darkness surrounding her is now visible shades of gray. She holds her hands in front of her face, staring at the long hooked claws. The darkened forest expanse before her shimmers with a beauty she's never before witnessed. Moonlight. Moonlight is all she needs. The night is so soothing, so comforting. She continues onward, the bright lights passing into her sight, a beacon of her destination. Assuming her stealthy position once more, she approaches the hunter's camp, observing as they sit around the blazing bonfire. The red painted metal shimmers next to the fire. The bed of the truck lowered. The rifle sits upon the ridge of the truck, only a couple of feet from them. Loud, reprehensible instruments. It fills her with scorn. Staring from the darkness, smelling their sweat, that familiar strange feeling overtakes her. Their scathing words echo in her mind. Monster. She can feel it all over. The hunger. These men are but animals. Animals are prey. She can feel her tongue passing over her veins, hot, heavy breaths rolling out of her maw as she stares at the ground before her. Every fiber of muscle in her feels primed. Her eyes focus only on her meal. The small talk between the hunters goes silent as one turns to the bushes surrounding them. His eyes glaze over with panic as his body freezes up. Two red, glowing eyes staring into him from the darkness, his soul itself filling the piercing gaze. The spine-chilling roar erupts from the girl as she pounces into the firelight, pinning the paralyzed hunter to the ground. She doesn't hesitate. Her jaws clamp down around his throat, ripping the vulnerable flesh to shreds, scarlet liquid spraying all over her. But the hunt isn't over yet. Her vigilant eyes dart up, watching as the grizzled hunter, hell-bent on revenge, scrambles toward his rifle. He grabs the smooth wooden stock in his palm. She grabs his rough skinned neck in her claws. His muddy boots leave the ground as she lifts him towards the stars, her crushing grip tightening around his throat. As he dangles there, helplessly, he only managed to utter one word as his throat is crushed. She stares at his lifeless body, held so easily off the ground. Strength. Her claws finally let up, the heavy carcass falling to the ground like a bag of cement. She stares downwards, her eyes filling with anticipation. She drops down onto all fours, ripping into her fresh kill. Her fallen prey. She never felt so good. She never felt so alive. Cathartic satisfaction fills her entire being as the predator devours her prey. The remains reduced to scattered inedible parts. She stands up, her coarse, monstrous breath condensing in the chilly wind. Her head tilts up as she stares at the shining, lustrous moon above. She glances over to the truck, noticing the moonlight reflecting off the glass. She walks closer. A tall creature stands in the reflection, two glowing red eyes staring from the darkened eye sockets of a skeletal face. Towering antlers stretch out of its head, a large mane flowing down from them. Red gore covers its bony muzzle, large veins dripping with blood pointing to the ground. Elongated arms tipped with blackened claws rest at its side, both legs supporting it. No clothes cover its furred body, a gleaming silver necklace, the only evidence of what was there before. She holds up her arm. It does too. She tilts her head. It does too. She opens her mouth. It does too. Reality dawns on her. She should be freaking out. She should be screaming. But she isn't. She feels no more fear. She feels no more cold. She feels no more confusion. Her long pointed tongue licks over her fangs. She knows the thrill of the hunt. She's tasted the forbidden fruit. Ugh. It's chilly out here, even with this fire. Come on, stay on a bit longer. Spooky atmospheres like these are hard to come by. Fine, you win. That's what I like to hear. You know, I'm reminded of an old tale about the night in woods. They say if you wander out far from the path, if you let your curiosity take you into the darkness, then you'll never come out. What? Monsters come and drag you off or something? Ha! I'm sure it's something like that. She stands out on the open dirt road, staring down towards the exit of the forest. The mere thought of leaving gives her a sinking, burning feeling in her heart. Whatever was out there, whatever is out there, it's not home. She turns back towards the towering pines, taking in a deep breath. The fresh forest air filling her nose. She can feel the slightly damp earth beneath her feet, the foliage swaying in the wind around her, and the cool air passing through her fur. She's been lost her whole life, hopelessly lost, until now. The darkness welcomes her to a true home. Haunting singing echoes through the darkness as the girl vanishes into the trees.
It's a fun story, isn't it? Well, not many people have heard of it. And it's one of those stories that hasn't actually been made publicly for the world to see, which I plan to do now, And stories like this, the airhead who went through possibly hell, could have went through this exact same thing that the story that I've heard of this lost girl. So wherever she is now, hopefully that she found her place. But like many of us, we will find our own place. Yeah. So let's take this back to our den, and we could place it upon a mantelpiece, and we could learn more about who this creature once was. If you enjoyed the story, for some of you who are new, if you enjoyed the story, consider joining our pack. It's a marvelous place, and we look forward to serving with you. And if you have any stories of your own, share them with us. We'll be glad to know. Remember, not every story just has to be something that is fabricated or something you made up. Sometimes the stories, you might be living a story. That's what makes you a story hunter. When you're going out and you find out who you are, that's where your story begins. And hopefully it has an empty ending. So with that being said, again, join our pack. And join our pack. We have many other praise for people to share and experience. So go ahead and share them with others. And bring others here so that we can all feast on our prey together. And remember, be ready to hunt when you hear our howl. And we'll see you then.